And away we go. Getting into a custom prop martini. Happens to belong to a zombie, and happens to match a tattoo I now have. Let's get started. I would have rather begun with a plastic martini glass because it obviously is less breakable, but I found this one secondhand and fell in love. This prop has 3 big parts to it, the first being the glass, the second being the bone that goes through the third, which is the eye. I wanted the bone to be able to have the actual strength to go through the eye, so I made it out of polymer clay, which would end up being more stable than something like air dry clay. I rolled out a piece of polymer clay so one side was to a point and the other one was very thick. I kept going back and forth between the glass and my workspace to make sure that it would fit how I wanted it to. When I had the bottom the way that I wanted it, I cut the top off so that me poking and prodding it wouldn't actually affect the bottom. I molded this to the shape of a butt, with a crack. We were not crack-a-lackin' today. I scored both sides of the pieces that would be fit together, simply pushed them together and molded the edges to fit. It was then time for me to add the texture, with just a few clay tools. It was quick enough, a few lines of wear and tear basically, something for a future color to sink into. Getting into the paint job though, I took a less than bright yellow and some water, and I used a disposable sponge to add it onto select areas, mostly around the neck of where the 2 pieces connected, as well as the butt crack. Then I followed that up with a very light amount down the shaft, being sure not to let too much of it dry before I dabbed it off. This is where those striations come into play. Then I did the same with a medium brown to give it a little bit of an older, grungier look of sorts. Once that was all good to go, I baked it down, and then moved on to the eyeball, which was going to be mostly made of styrofoam. I took a metal tool to poke a general hole through the styrofoam, being sure that the polymer clay bone would fit in it. Yes, it was already basically white to start, but I wanted it to be a stark white, plus I didn't want the styrofoam texture to be so prominent on it. Now that we're dry, it is the moment of truth. I want to go with silver, guys. I don't know why, but I do, and so I will. That's not silver. I mean, it's silver, but it's not. Ooh. There we go. Oh my god, it is everywhere. Adding the eye color on using a rounded object, the back of a paintbrush, despite it being bigger than the actual back of the paintbrush, it made sure that the circle would keep to just that, round around the edges. I think that's decent so far. With this anyways, the eye is not going to be the focus. Get it? Because it's an eye and eyes focus. And once that dried down, finally a black dotted on again with the back of a paintbrush. Let that dry eye. Now let that dry down. To seal it all in together and to add the gloss of the eye, I'm coating the eye and all around the eye with resin. And attempting many times to balance it onto a Tim's cup to allow the excess to drip off. Oh my god. I thought I broke it. Well, that's doing some stuff. Curing, Sarah. Well, it is curing. I started to pull apart some red thread, making sure the edges were very frayed. This would eventually be the red of the eye, the bloodshot look of sorts, which I was able to achieve by placing a piece down around the pupil or the iris and then using the same popsicle stick that I originally put the resin on with to set the rest of the thread down and move it around as needed. Ah! Oh my god. It's everywhere. Once it was to my liking, I moved it aside for a minute and started on the green martini. As that dries, we're going to see if we can start on the martini. Definitely toxic waste or something. This was made by mixing a lime green alcohol ink, which was fitting considering the beverage, with resin. First, I tried adding a little bit to the bottom and pulling it up around the edges, but I ended up just pouring it all in the end. It was a little bit darker than I envisioned, but it still worked out. Leave that to dry or cure, I suppose. Just kidding. I got the resin to a level that I wanted it to. There still needs to be more. Place the eye in it and let it cure down. There you have it, a sludge lime green prop martini drink. That is a mouthful. And maybe a mouthful. Anyways, that is it for today's video, and I do hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye, guys.